Hello, and welcome to Controllers Tech. I have decided to continue the STM32 timer series, and I will try to cover as many timer functions as possible. I have already made a few videos in the past, which are available in the STM32 timer playlist, and this video will continue that series, with few more coming in the upcoming weeks. So far we have seen how to use PWM, input capture, and encoder mode in the timers. This video will cover how to synchronize the timers. There will be more videos coming under the topic timer synchronization, and each of them will focus on only one specific operation. So today's video will cover how to use the master timer to start the slave timer. This can help you to avoid delay between the timer outputs. For example, if you want to send the different PWM signals to different inputs of a device, but they must all start at the same time. Using the traditional method will have some delay between these signals, as each statement takes some time to execute. Today's video will cover this issue, and how we can use the timers feature to avoid this delay. Alright, let's start the Cube IDE, and create a new project. I will explain the requirements as we go along with the video. I am using the STM32F446RE controller. Give some name to the project, and click Finish. I am enabling the external crystal to provide the clock to the STM32 board. The board has 8 MHz crystal on it, and let's run the system at a maximum 180 MHz frequency. Now before we proceed further, let me show you how we can achieve this. Here you can see a diagram for triggering the timer 2, with the update of the timer 1. Basically, when the counter of the master timer, that is timer 1, overflows, an update event will be generated. With this update event, the slave timer, that is timer 2, counter will start counting. Remember that the slave counter does not reset to 0 before counting starts, it will just resume the counter from wherever it was paused. This is called the trigger mode when the timer is used as a slave timer. Now the question is, which timer will exactly start counting? To understand this, you need to open the reference manual of your controller, and search for the internal trigger connection. Here is one connection table, but this is not what I am looking for. This is the one I need, as it has the timers I am going to work with. The first column is the slave timer, and the rest of the columns represent the signal sent by the corresponding master timer. For example, if timer 2 is used as the slave, then timer 1 can be used as the master, and the signal sent by the timer 1 will be ITR0. Similarly, timer 3 can also be controlled by the timer 1 using the ITR0. But if you want to control the timer 3 with timer 2, then you need to use the ITR1 signal. Also I am going to use the PWM output to monitor the timers working, so we need to also see the clocks the timers are running at. Here in the clock diagram you can see the APB2 timer clock is running at 180 MHz. Whereas the APB1 timer clock is at 90 MHz. This is the picture from the F446RE datasheet, and here it is mentioned that the timer 2 is connected to APB1 bus. Whereas the timer 1 connected to the APB2 bus. This means the timer 2 will by default run at 180 MHz, and timer 1 will run at 90 MHz. We will further divide these clocks to reduce them. Alright, let's set up the timers now. Timer 1 is the master timer, so I am only enabling the PWM output on channel 1. The clock is at 180 MHz, so we will bring it down to 100 Hz using the prescaler and auto reload value as shown in the formula. There is no particular requirement for the frequency, just set it to what you want. Next, in the trigger event selection, choose the update event. This will generate the update event flag, whenever the counter overflows. In the PWM section, set the duty cycle, so that we can see the output in the oscilloscope. I am setting it to 300, with ARR being 1000, the duty will be 30%. Here I am choosing the channel polarity to be low, so the output will be inverted. I am doing this so that we can see details more clearly on the scope. This is it for the master setup. Let's set the slave timer now. Here in the slave mode, select the trigger mode, and the trigger source is ITR0. As I have already explained, the trigger mode allows the master timer to control the start of the slave timer. ITR0 is the trigger signal used by the timer 1 to control the timer 2. To see how the slave timer behaves, we will also enable the PWM output for the timer 2. Here we have the pin PA0 as the timer 2 PWM pin, and PA8 as the timer 1 PWM pin. I am entering a random value here, as the PWM is not the priority for us. Here you can see the trigger mode is selected as the slave controller. Just give some random value to the pulse also. At last I am keeping the channel polarity low. So this is it for the CubeMX setup. Click Save to generate the project. In the main function, we will just enable the PWM for both the timers, so that we can observe the outputs of the two timers. I am starting the PWM for the timer 2 first. Let's also give some delay between them. So if the slave mode doesn't work, you can clearly see the timer 2's output before the timer 1. Let's build and flash the program to the board. Here I have connected the timer 1 to channel 0, and timer 2's output to the channel 1. Here you can see the output of both the timers. Let me reset the board to see what happens in the beginning. Here you can see the timer 2's output goes low, but the PWM doesn't start. Actually PWM is working, it's just that the counter was initialized to 0, and it's not counting up. The counter is blocked, and this is why the PWM output is always 0. Now this is the part where the timer 1 PWM starts, its counter was also initialized with 0. The counter counts up, and overflows at this point. Once the counter overflows, an update event is generated, which triggers the counter of the timer 2, and the timer 2's counter starts counting. Finally you can see the PWM waveform of the timer 2. So we can see how the timer 2's counter was blocked until the timer 1 generated an update event. Now let me quickly show the output of this same configuration, without the slave mode being used. You can see the rest of the configuration is the same. We will keep the code unchanged, let's just flash it to the board. Here you can see the output. The timer 2's PWM actually started way before the timer 1. This is how we programmed our timers, and without the slave mode triggering, it shows the output in that way. So we saw the effect of using the slave mode with trigger mode, and how it delays the counter until the master generates an update event. Let's take this further, and this time we will start 3 slave timers using the same master. As you can see in the picture, the timers 2, 3 and 4 can be controlled by the master timer 1, using the same signal ITR0. We will simply set up the timers 3 and 4 just like we did for the timer 2. I am enabling the PWM for both of these timers. That's it for the setup. Let's generate the code now. In the main file we will start the PWM for all 4 timers. I am starting the slave timers first, each with the delay of 500 milliseconds. Since the timers are working in the slave mode, all 3 of them will start at the same time, after the overflow occurs in the timer 1. Let's build and flash the code. I forgot to change the channel polarity for the timer 3 and 4, let me do that quickly. Here you can see all 3 timers have been enabled, but their counter was blocked. When the overflow occurred in the timer 1, an update event was generated and all the 3 timers started counting up. You can think of this as the parallel synchronization of the timers. We can also synchronize them in series. If you take a look at the table, you can see here that the timer 3 can be controlled by the timer 2, using the ITR1 signal. And timer 4 can be controlled by the timer 3, using the ITR2 signal. So in the timer 2 setup, we will enable the trigger event as the update event. Now for timer 3, change the trigger source to ITR1. Also enable the trigger event for the timer 3. Change the trigger source for timer 4 to ITR2. We have cascaded them in the series, and the next timer will only start once the previous timer has generated the update event. The code will remain the same, let's build and flash it to the board. Alright, we can clearly see a little different output than the previous case. Here is the overflow of the timer 1, and timer 2 starts counting after that. This is where the timer 2 overflows, and timer 3 starts after that. Again timer 4 starts after the overflow in the timer 3. Keeping the channel polarity low is not giving a clear picture about this. Let me change the polarity to high, and we will see the output again. Now you can visualize it in a better way. Now that we have the proper polarity, let me explain how the PWM signal is generated. I have already explained it in the previous tutorial about PWM, but I am explaining again here. We have the auto reload value, and the pulse, which is also a capture compare value. Basically the counter counts up, until it reaches the capture compare value, the output remains high. And after the capture compare value, the output remains low, till it reaches the auto reload value. This is where the overflow occurs, and the counter reset back to 0. 0 marker is where the overflow occurs in the timer 1. Timer 2 starts after this moment, and marker 1 indicates the point where the overflow occurs in the timer 2. Marker 2 indicates the point where the overflow occurs in the timer 3. You can see the timer 3 and 4 basically have the same waveform, even as per the timing. This is because both of these timers are running at 50% duty cycle, so when the overflow occurs for timer 3, the counter resets to 0. This is the point where the update event is generated, and the timer 4 also starts counting up. Both timers will count up at the same speed, and hence you can see the same waveform. I hope you understood how the master timer can control the start of the slave timers. We will continue this timer series, where we will cover different functionalities of master and slave timers. The next video will cover how to generate 3 PWM signals with 120-degree phase shift. This is it for the video. You can download the code from the link in the description. Leave comments in case of any doubt. Keep watching, and have a nice day ahead.